Hi everyone, my name is Sneha and I'm on the product marketing team here at Wiz. I'm really excited to spend some time with you today to talk about data and AI and how they go together. So let's get started. First, why do we combine AI and data? I see them as two sides of the same coin, and there's a few different reasons why. First, data drives behavior. When you think about building AI services, tools, models, and more, models really are looking at the data set that it's training on to predict the behavior and see what it's going to do next. Models act on this data that you give it, be it training sets, the prompts itself, and really shape the capability, the bias, and the risk. And this behavior is critical in terms of how we use AI, really connecting the two. Number two, AI creates new sensitive data. As we start to use AI in so many different flows at a company, be it the context we're giving it, the logs, the outputs itself, different things it's creating, it really starts to create more data that now potentially could have sensitive data or data that must be governed. Last but not the least, but maybe the most critical, AI has really unlocked so many new paths for us to do our jobs, for us to unlock things for our customers and more. But it also, as we see it, has created new access paths and new ways to get to sensitive data and things that you need to secure as a business. There's a few examples I like to look at in terms of what has been happening in the world of security across cloud and AI. A couple examples recently really highlight the importance of data and AI going hand in hand. First, think about the DeepSeek example. In this case, the DeepSeek database had sensitive information that was leaked, including the chat history in itself. Same way, the NVIDIA Escape vulnerability really highlighted the systemic risk that was applied to the entire AI ecosystem and the implications it had for the infrastructure itself. So when we think about AI and data together, there are a few risks, and of course, this is not a complete list. There's a few risks that come top of mind. First, sensitive data sprawl in AI. When we think about what AI is connected to in an environment, a huge part of that is data. Being able to say, where is that data? What is it connected to? Is it sensitive and not? Being able to look at that is critical. One of the risks it surfaces is you have potentially replicated data, retention across the board. This may or may not be classified, or it's not always giving you the exposure you need with the policies that you create, therefore creating many different layers of risk here when you have that data sprawl. Number two is the AI infrastructure takeover. This is really looking at when we think about building an AI service, it really lives across your cloud infrastructure and how you're building it. So you're looking at what potential vulnerabilities, misconfigurations could exist on the servers and containers and endpoints itself. Then thinking about permissions, what kind of service accounts you may have, the permissions they have, secrets that are leaked, lateral movement potential, all thinking through the layers of which you could really get into that infrastructure and cause a potential takeover or risk. Last but not the least is really those access paths that we just touched on. When we start to create these new access paths through AI, a lot of the times they could cause uncontrolled risks because of a lack of visibility, because of shadow AI in the mix. We can't protect what we can't see. So when we think about what's out of review, so you may have new identities, agents, shadow AI tools, and more, really bringing to context that without having that link between AI, data, identity, and just overall cloud context, this really breaks the information you need to prioritize and respond to risk in this environment and era that we're in. So let's take a look at what we think about when be it data or AI. One thing I wanted to highlight before we get into that is as much as we connect the two when it comes to data security, AI security, and more, it's also critical as a business to think about how the shared context can unlock the kind of risk you need to see as a business, but also how do you tailor the views and surfaceability and depth of information to different teams that need to work on this. In the world that we live in with securing the AI era, it's really important to realize that so many different teams are going to be working on this and coming at this in different ways. And it's really important for that context and depth to go together hand in hand. Let's go through the foundations for DSPM and the things we think about. Some key use cases typically start with discovery and visibility, being able to answer the question, where is my data? What types of data do we have? Who can actually access this data? Followed by really thinking through risk. Do you have a robust data classification engine? Really being able to say, what does sensitive mean to your specific business? Last but not the least, not much is important outside of being able to consume these insights and respond to that risk in itself. Making sure that you can be compliant from the start, have many different options to be it manually respond, automate, and have best practices out of the box. This typically comes together in a platform by looking at how far that coverage is. What is it that you can scan? What is it that you can look at across cloud, data platforms, SaaS, on-prem, and more. Followed by thinking about data classification. In the world of data classification, you want to make sure that not only is it a system that's robust, but can you trust its outputs? Do you understand the options you have? Do you have the customization that you need? And in AI world, there's also the ability to use AI-powered classification. This combined with the context you have across your tools and across the cloud really starts to give you insight into where your risk might lie. And then you're able to apply best practices around data to respond, including examples like reduce, restrict, relabel, and more. Now, really quick, if we go through some highlights here, one of the other things that comes up is thinking about shadow data. We talked about going from cloud and SaaS and so many different platforms to surface it. But how do you get insight into your data sprawl? Are there things that you can do to reduce that sprawl, be it by understanding what is duplicate, what is out of date, what maybe could be reduced? And not only does this reduce the surface area of risk, it also reduces the cloud spend that you might have, really unlocking different priorities here for you, making sure you have better data governance overall. When we think about risk, you really want to make sure that you're able to proactively remove these attack paths, starting to think about what is it that you're classifying, making sure it's robust, customizable, and AI-driven. When you put this context together, you really have those high fidelity alerts, not just proactively, but also starting to think about this from a data detection and response perspective. How do you look at the kind of activity that is happening in an environment, having end-to-end attack visibility? You can look at two things, being able to look at the logs itself and say, are we seeing certain patterns, certain behaviors, and addressing the types of risk that you might see real time in runtime. Last but not the least, on the data side, compliance is critical. Using tools either internally, externally, that can give you continuous compliance and monitoring is critical. And being able to automate that by knowing who is it that's responsible for fixing this, empowering a real democratization of security here. Let's jump into a few basics on AI security here. One thing I quickly wanted to highlight is the kind of adoption we're seeing is unparalleled. There's a reason this is important. There's a reason we're talking about this. Over 85% of the organizations we've seen are using some form of AI. The other thing we've seen here is the rate of adoption is extremely steep. When DeepSeek first came out, the curve was quite literally not straight in any way, giving you this ability to say, not only is AI unlocking the rate of adoption, it also means we have to think about security as fast as that. You put different layers of AI together to really connect the dots, thinking about infrastructure to the models itself, to the data, of course, and the application layer. And you want to think about this across the board, end-to-end AI security for the enterprise. When you think about AI security by risk, you want to make sure you're investing in platforms that are able to look at this across the board, be it shadow AI, being able to surface what is in the environment, infrastructure risk, native AI risk, or the things that are happening runtime post-deployment. There are 4 stages in which we recommend looking at this, starting with gaining visibility, so AI bomb, inventory, just being able to answer the question for where is AI in our environment. Number 2, detecting those misconfigurations, really looking at AI-specific risk, things like model scanning, guardrail scoring, and more, or your MCP endpoints. How do you surface that? Putting that together against cloud context to understand not only your AI risk, but anything it touches in your environment. And last but not the least, understanding how you can monitor this in runtime. You're able to do this very quickly with platforms like Wiz and more to be able to detect that, start to answer the question of where AI is in your environment, surface misconfigurations, including guardrail tooling from things like Vertex AI, OpenAI, and more. Be able to surface that and attack paths in the security graph, starting with that deep risk analysis, the sensitive data connection, and then be able to remove those critical paths, and be able to real-time detect the threats that may come up and make sure that you can respond to it to reduce the blast radius. There's a few things I'm going to leave you with when it comes to data and AI, since there's so much more to talk about on each of these topics. First, start with visibility. No matter how you come at this problem, really being able to discover and classify sensitive data across your environment is critical. But not stopping there, mapping that to the owners, the regulatory scope that you have, and being able to prioritize that is very important. Number 2, connecting AI to data across the cloud. A lot of the times we get insights and information without the story you need, which is not seeing the connection between the services you're building to your data sources and otherwise. You can inventory your models, your endpoints, and agents to really surface that shadow AI, identify these connection points and prioritize them, and also elevate how this AI risk comes into play across the cloud. Last but not the least, it is an ever-evolving space to think about AI governance overall, but the critical foundation of security does remain. Knowing that you can apply these built-in guardrails or more from the start, some recommendations are access scope, retention, secrets, being able to track those KPIs, your risk reduction, MTTR, policy coverage, as well as checking for where you stand with existing compliance needs all the way from the beginning, which only, of course, occurs with the visibility. Hopefully that leaves you with just a few thoughts to take home when it comes to data and AI security, and we would love to learn more from you as you delve into what this looks like for your customers and for your business. Thank you so much for having me today, and hope you have a great day and rest of the event.